Hello audio students, this is a quick tutorial about how to route your reverbs correctly in Pro Tools. Now there's a couple of ways to go about it, and some of you have probably done this in other DAWs, and some of you maybe this is your first experience about using reverb in a program like this. So we kind of went through EQs and compressions, and we talked about how to use them, and we talked about how to apply the inserts on the EQ over here using these tabs. Now you might be thinking, hey, let's just go in here and choose the reverb plugin, which is called Reverb, and just apply it the same way we're doing it here, right? And now here's a problem. If I was going to play this,
I knew I'd be the only one taking the...
Okay, you're hearing the reverb, but the thing is you're only hearing the wet and not the dry, right? So recall that when we are listening to acoustics, we have three things that we're listening to at the same time: the direct signal or the direct sound, the early reflections, and the reverberations. This one, it's like you're not even hearing the direct original sound at all. You're just hearing the reverberation only. Now I could go in here and change it from wet to a little bit dry, and then you get a combination of dry and wet. So let's go ahead and see this here.
I started to follow their instructions. I knew I'd be the only one taking the blame because my friend was already disappearing far off into the distance.
You could do that, and that might work, but there's cons to that as well, things that, you know, are not as good. And I want to show you the better way to create reverb and to route your reverb in Pro Tools. So I'm going to delete this here, and I'm going to hit no insert. And the idea here is to create a dry signal and a wet signal, where this vocal track that I want the reverb is going to be the dry signal, and then there's going to be another track that's going to be just the wet signal. So here's how we'll do this. We're going to go to track, hit new, and then make sure that we want something called an aux input track. And then instead of mono, we want to be in stereo, because reverb is a stereo effect, right? There's things on the left side, things on the right side, things in the middle. The idea of how a room sound is a stereo effect. And we're going to call this reverb return. That's specifically what it is, right? So we'll call this reverb return. Why is it called reverb return? Because the reverb is being returned onto this track, and I'll show you that. So we got the reverb return, and this is going to be for our vocals, and I'll show you something cool later on. So I want to send this vocal to this reverb, right? So I'm going to go over here on my aux track, choose the reverb here. Okay, so let's go to our Reverb that we all love, and make sure that this is all the way at 100%. You can mess around with the decay time, pre-delay, and all that stuff later. So that's what that is. Now, the next move that I want to do is make sure I assign this input to a bus that I am not using. So let's choose bus 1, 2. Okay, so the input's bus 1, 2. Now, what I want to do is take this vocal into bus 1, 2. So send the vocals to bus 1, 2. And then once it goes in here, it's going to get the reverb, right? So that's what the reverb return is all about. So let's go to our vocal here, and we want to not see our inserts. We want to see our sends. There you go, because we want to send this vocal to bus 1 and 2. So we go to our sends, and you go to the vocal, and you go to the first tab, and you choose bus 1 and 2, the corresponding bus here, right? So as soon as I turn this up, the vocal is being sent to the reverb. So you're going to get the wet vocal here and the dry vocal here, both playing at the same time. So let's try this out.
I started to follow their instructions. I knew I'd be the only one taking the blame because my friend was already disappearing far off into the distance. Lovely. I guess I thought it'd be nice to have someone alongside of me for this shitty experience I was about to have. Full of shame, regret, and embarrassment, I felt the...
So now you're hearing the dry and the wet signal together, right? Whereas before you were listening to only the wet, and then when I moved it to the dry, you're getting a combination of dry and wet. But this sounds a lot more realistic because the way this is routed mimics what's happening in real life. Now, the cool thing about doing it like this is that I can send many different signals to the same reverb. So for example,
you to step into our office, please?
Now she's, you know, talking over here, or let's say, let's see what this is. Okay, let's say that I want that to go to the same reverb. Well, I can go to that alarm, right? And I could send that alarm to bus 1 and 2 as well. So I go to bus 1 and 2. Turn this up.
Son of a... We're going to need you.
So And then she has a vocal on this track. I could send that to bus 1 and 2 as well. Right.
Son of a... We're going to need you to step into our office, please.
So you can send many sources to the same destination, right? You can send vocal 1, the burglar alarm, you can send the other vocal, all to this one reverb. And that's going to make sure that your computer processing is not going to be that, used as much, because you're only using one plugin. Whereas if the way I showed it before, I would have to put a reverb on each one of these tracks in order to get reverb. That's what you don't want, right? So you can do that like this, and this is the most convenient way to do that. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you. Now